Let's throw our hands in the air as we soar through the sky.
Yatta!
We'll catch the sun with your hand in mine, and if we work as a team, everything will be fine.
Yeah!
Oh, it's Cure of the What Now?
Let's henshin and start the show!
Hello, fellow lonely procrastinators, and welcome to episode 46 of
Cure of the What Now?
the one show where we know you don't have to make up excuses to delay a fight over hundreds of years in a bizarre attempt to befriend your enemy. You can just use your words. Invite them out for a soda.
Play laser tag.
Play laser tag. What else are people into doing with friends nowadays?
I mean, I'm guessing that the mermaid, probably the Witch of Delays, probably enjoys music, so concerts is another good one.
Yeah, sing a song together. Write a song about your enduring friendship. Just use your words. My name is Kat, and I am a simp for an idea.
Huh. All right. Very nice, very nice. I'm Joel, and darn it, wouldn't you know, I tried to catch that stupid talking weasel fairy, and he outsmarted me. I have lost.
Well, he's not a weasel. He's a cute fairy. An adorable fairy, he might even say.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the show. As always, we start with a lead-in discussion if we don't have news or announcements, and we don't. But first, we did get a response to last week's discussion question, which was, what would each of the Tropical Club have as their signature dish if they were going to cook for you?
Now, I want to point out, what you did there is you said, we're going to start the discussion question because we don't have this other section. But before we get to that section that I specifically segued into, we have to take a break to do this other thing.
I'm very stupid, Your Majesty.
Please note, I do not condone people calling themselves stupid. However, since that is a direct quote from a rather good movie, The 10th Kingdom, then I will allow it.
Man, if only some people had done like a podcast episode discussing The 10th Kingdom. Do you know any people who might have done something like that?
You know, I'm thinking about it. I think there's these cool people over at King of the What Now.
King of the What Now? Indeed. But anyway, last week's discussion question.
Yes.
James, that one welder guy, our frequent contributor to the podcast, said Manatsu is a hamburger helper kind of gal, but I love his addition here. He says most of the time she throws the box in the trash immediately and forgets that she needs it for the measurements, which is something that happens to everyone, I think. But then, one time Sango threw the trash away early, and since Manatsu didn't have the instructions, she tried her best to finish it. All the girls pretend to like it. Laura feeds her portion to Karurun when Manatsu isn't paying attention. Asuka gets sick and can't go on her tennis date and yells, "Curse you, hamburger helper!" Which, yeah, I can see that.
A PreCure version of Dan versus... but it's Asuka. Curse you, hamburger helper! Asuka versus hamburger helper.
Which state would Asuka go to war with? It's always New Mexico. It's got to be New Mexico.
Okay, I was thinking like Ohio. I don't know.
I don't know 50 states. No, I do. Anyway, so I really appreciated that. I feel like he really captured the raw Manatsu energy I was going for when I said she's a hamburger helper kind of gal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
My favorite roommate in college moved in with me briefly after living alone, and when I went over to his previous apartment to help him pack up his stuff and move, I discovered he had only one pan, and it was an enormous, like, electric skillet, and he only cooked hamburger helper in it. And I was like, buddy, you gotta eat real food. And he was like, this is real food. What are you talking about? And then we spent the rest of our roommatehood frequenting Taco Bell way more often than we should have. So I guess glass houses and throwing rocks.
I know that there are probably some people who go to college and eat rather well, perhaps people who have very high standards, but it's just the college experience, as far as I know, to eat like junk food all the time.
Box food is a regular thing. So I was raised, I don't want to say by food snobs exactly. Joel would say food snobs.
I'd consider using the title.
But I was raised by parents who took a lot of pride in their own cooking, and they spent a lot of time learning things about cooking. And so my mom was very much we don't eat things like that in this house. One time I offered to make her mac and cheese for one of our friends, and they came over and they were like, I thought you meant out of a box. And I looked aghast at them and I went, when would I ever serve you anything out of a box? And that was my mother's voice speaking through me.
You were channeling your ancestors, the pride that has flowed through the family lines. I, on the other hand, was shocked to learn at the age of 7 that you can make mashed potatoes with just potatoes. You don't just take a mix and add milk and put it in the stove or whatever it is. So, too lumpy, man. Too lumpy.
They taste better. When you make them out of a box, they have this weird grainy texture. It's like eating ash.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Fight me on mic. Let's make a food podcast where we take a boxed food that we get from the grocery store and we make that, and then we make a better gourmet version of it.
Every episode ends with me going, yeah,
it's fine.
The homemade one is a little bit better, but it takes so much longer, so I'm probably just going to stick to the box lunch.
And then I scream, and that's the end of every episode.
We cut you off right before you scream every single time.
You just hear my gasp in. So, with
now
that
we can segue into
aside,
the proper...
Yes. Joel, the very first thing we're going to talk about on this podcast, you have a discussion question for us this week.
I do. So last week we talked about the upcoming season. Plug your ears for 10 seconds if you want no spoilers. We found out that they're returning to the every PreCure gets their own fairy formula. We've seen this in Healin Good. No, yeah, we've seen this in Healin Good. We've seen this in Heartcatch, and we've seen this in Futari Wa. So what I want to know is if we had taken that style, if we'd been blessed with individual fairies for each of the tropical girls, what would their overall kind of personalities be like, and what would their relationship be with their girls?
And are you thinking we stick to tropical animals here? I would assume yes, but I'm willing to be flexible.
It seems like more recent seasons have done creatures that are more based off of animals, whereas earlier ones like Floof and Moof and Meppel and Mipple, those are just creatures. They're not really anything in specific, but Tart was clearly based off of a weasel, and Nuts and Coco were clearly their own animals as well. Were they both squirrels? Or was one of them something else?
No, one's a squirrel and one's a fox.
Okay, I see. We haven't seen that season yet, so they're not fresh in my memory.
Haha.
But anyways...
Of course not, because they're yes PreCure 5
We could stick to tropical animals, but in when I was contemplating this question, I wasn't focusing exclusively on that.
Okay, good to know. Manatsu gets a monkey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, just a little, a wild, crazy party child.
So do they both egg each other on, then?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe they're both constantly getting into, scuffles, but friendly scuffles. I can do it better than you. No, you can't. I can jump so high.
I like the idea of Asuka's, I don't know exactly what creature, I mean, it could be a flamingo, that'd be the most obvious, but I imagine Asuka's being slightly competitive with her, and kind of you would want to put it in such a way that it felt like they were still really good friends, but imagine if the fairy was constantly chiding her and being like, Shiratori could have done that better. She would have served more cleanly or something like that. She eggs Asuka on in a way that inspires her to do more.
Okay, I like it. I have an animal for Sango, but I'm struggling for Minori. What if we gave her a fictional, a mythical animal?
What about a sentient papaya? No, not everything she does has to center around.
Gosh, it's literally just a papaya that she talks to, and the other girls are like, but then when they're all getting their, bonus friendship up with the fairies and they get their new attacks, her papaya glows and she gets a new attack.
Absolutely.
For Sango, I have Pascal from Tangled. She gets a little chameleon, and it is obsessed with colors.
Okay, yeah,
so
I like that.
Anything bright and colorful and fun, it gets excited about. So it is attracted to Sango's personality because she's all about the cute and the colorful.
I like the idea. So from what I've noticed, you typically either get fairies that are similar personalities to their respective person, or sometimes you might get people who are kind of opposites and they help build each other up. Actually, all the examples I'm thinking of, they basically all have the same personality as their people.
Yeah, because I was thinking of Healin Good, and I was thinking of how, like, Rabarin was attracted to specific traits in Notica that Rabarin also has, and, like, Pegaton specifically was like, gee, is nice.
My point is that I was thinking, Manatsu's and Asuka seem to be fairly on the same wavelengths as them, and I assume that since Minori is talking to a papaya that only she can hear, that they probably are on the same wavelength. But I think it would be interesting if Songo's Pascal or chameleon friend was a little bit more outgoing and helped push her boundaries. They'd still bond over fashion and pretty things and stuff like that, and maybe Songo would be a little bit better at teaching hers about fashion and stuff, but maybe she would help Songo be a little bit more.
Maybe she likes just absolutely outrageous color pattern combinations.
Or like eye burners or whatever.
Yeah, you've seen like color blocking where you just have crazy colors going together. So maybe she's really into that, and Songo's like, that's so out, or that's so forward. And the lizard is like, nah, man, I'm embracing my own cute.
Okay, I like that. And could Laura just have Karurun, or do you think she should have a more, like a creature that can talk?
I think Laura would have Karurun, because I'm thinking now of Latte. Latte got her own person eventually.
That is true. I do think it would be kind of funny if she had a male fairy that was kind of sort of like the prince, quote unquote, of the Grand Ocean, and he would be like Asuka. He would call Laura when she got too haughty, or she was like, this is no problem for me, and he's like, don't overwork yourself, and then she overworks herself, of course, and then he's like helping nurse her back to health, and it's like, ugh. This girl.
I like that a lot. Once again, plug your ears if you're avoiding delicious party discussion just for a couple of seconds. In Healin Good, they did the Cure Touch.
Yeah.
In Delicious Party, do you think they'll like take a bite out of their fairy?
No. Get in my mouth.
Cure Chomp. That was a great discussion question. Now, Joel, I told you this before we sat down to record, but just as a update for our listeners, I want to do this episode slightly differently. We have officially finished Futari Wa PreCure. We watched the final 2 episodes, and so I want to take some time and kind of front load the episode with our retrospective on the series as a whole and what we are looking forward to going into Max Heart. So I will start with, can you give me a succinct summary of the final 2 episodes?
Yes. Basically, you have Jaku King, and you have the amalgamation of all the evil seeds, who doesn't receive a name. I'm going to call them Evil Jeff. So the girls have to fight Evil Jeff, and right at the moment when they're about to win the battle, the power of creation explodes out of his body, and Jaku King takes it and becomes even stronger. I should also note that Kiria is basically like, they're too strong, you can't fight them, but the girls decide to fight anyways, and Kiria has a little bit of like, I don't know if they can do it. And then in the final episode, Jaku King appears in the Field of Light, or are they the Field of Rainbows?
They are the Field of Rainbows.
Okay, he appears in the human world, essentially, and they have to fight him, but it's in an alternate dimension, because then that way they can blow up as many buildings as they want without hurting anyone, and they have to defeat him, but they're not strong enough, and Polun is like, what can I do? And the Queen of Light is like, hey, believe in yourself and believe in them, and you'll get an even greater power. So he gives them double believe in the power of light, and they do a really big rainbow storm, or whatever the attack is called. You get a little bit of the kind of aftermath of Honoka gives a speech to the graduating seniors who are going to be leaving Verona Academy, and she and Nagisa are going into their senior year. Grandma still knows that they're PreCure and clearly alludes to it, but then is like, I'm talking about your schoolwork. You're working really hard, aren't you, this past year? And then you get a scene of Meppel and Mipple going into the Odin sleep, never to be woken again until enough money is generated that a sequel series is produced. And that has been your succinct summary.
How did you feel about this finale?
I was hoping that the final battle would have a little bit more interesting choreography, and maybe the budget would be kicked up a bit, and I ended up finding that it wasn't that great in that respect, but I did, despite my reservations for the series, find myself getting a little teary at Mipple and Meppel going to sleep and being like, we'll stay here in the Field of Rainbows forever, but we may never see you again.
Absolutely. Well, and Honoka's speech to the graduating seniors really felt like she was talking to Meppel and Mipple as well. And so I felt the emotions of that scene, I think the way they intended to portray them. I also would have expected a little bit more intense of a battle. We've had battles in this season that were animated more spectacularly, right?
Yes.
But that said, I am always feral for the opening is playing.
They did do a great job with that. They played the opening during the climax of the battle. And then the other thing is that when they shoot their Rainbow Storm attack, the two girls are holding each other's hands. And when they need to make the beam bigger, they squeeze their hands harder. So they do that. But then they need to squeeze their hands even harder than that. And dang, they're gripping hard. Their hands are probably aching after that.
Probably. Honoka shaking her wrist out like, Nagisa, you've got a grip on you. Is it from all the lacrosse?
Absolutely.
But no, I feel like as an ending to this series, I liked it a lot. And I appreciated that the girls are moving forward with having a normal school life, quote unquote, which is what Nagisa has been striving for this whole time. But now she gets to do it with Honoka, who is a person she would never have become friends with without all this crazy PreCure stuff.
Absolutely. And the other thing that these final two episodes kind of clicked into place for me is the fact that, so Poloon, when he's kind of communicating psychically with the Field of Light, the Queen and the Elder, who I don't think has a proper name, they say like, oh yeah, I can't believe how much you've grown, and this new power you're about to awaken is based off of the fact that you've matured as a person. So when Poloon first showed up and he was annoying as crap, I was annoyed by him, and I was like, oh, it's a baby character, like not a fun baby like Chiffon, but just an annoying brat of a baby. But it turns out he was actually sort of being characterized. I would argue that they really didn't do a great job of showing that he was maturing until this last moment. But that does mean that they intentionally made him annoying instead of a character who is supposed to be cute, but you found annoying instead.
Totally. And something I pointed out to you while we were watching it is if you view the second half of Futari Wa as Poloon is the main character, this is a story about him, it becomes much more tolerable.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a lot more interesting when you consider, like, this isn't about the girls growing and overcoming stuff, it's about Poloon. And so viewing each episode from that lens, what is Poloon overcoming in this episode? I think that's interesting. So what are your thoughts on the season overall?
I would still say that this is one of my least favorite seasons. It and Healin Good are the two that I enjoyed the least, but they did a pretty good job. I mean, obviously, if the finale makes you feel in some kind of, a loneliness
some
or
melancholy,
then there have to be some emotions packed in there. I still think that the first half of the season was much stronger, and I wish that they had done a little bit more with the three evil seeds wanting their own freedom, because ultimately they lost, and I'm not sure what the point of putting them in, not them, but having them rebel against Jakku King kind of feels almost pointless, if that makes sense, because they're like, we're gonna usurp the evil king, and then they get defeated, and so like, whoa, okay, that's okay. But it was a good season. Yeah,
overall, I would say the strengths of this season are in the relationships between the different characters. I was so attached to the lacrosse girls by the end of the season.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, they're here. They get to be happy going into their senior year. Good for them. So relationships are really strong, especially between the two main girls, of course, which I think everybody I've seen say that this is their favorite PreCure season. That's why. They love Honoka and Nagisa specifically. I think that they did a good job building up both of the main characters' families, which they don't do in every season.
Absolutely.
There's a joke about some seasons where it's like, oh, they have parents.
I honestly forgot Momozona Love has a dad in one of the episodes we watched recently. I was like, he exists.
I thought she was a single mom, but no. And like the relationships with the fairies was really strong. We thought the fairies were annoying at the beginning of the series, but I think that was intentional because they annoy Nagisa. But over time, she grows to love them, and that bond kind of endears them to us as the viewers. I think the biggest weakness of this season was not really knowing where it was going, right?
Sure.
It was the first season of a new show. It kind of meandered, and the villains weren't necessarily strong or interesting in this second part. I really like what they did with Kiria and building up his and Honeka's relationship over time, and I wish we could have just focused in on that.
Yeah, I mean, even the generals from the first half of the season don't really get as much development as some of the villains do in other seasons of PreCure, but the Kiria stuff, and Kiria had kind of a little brother relationship with Poisony as well. I thought that was kind of interesting, but yeah, I think I liked this series a bit better than I did the first time we watched it when we stopped partway through. So yeah, you wanted to know what we're looking forward to in Max Heart. And I just hope that we get more episodes that are explicitly about the relationship between Nagisa and Honeka. Not like a shipping relationship, but just episodes where, like, Honeka is in danger, Nagisa's like, she's a really important friend to me. We had a few of those sprinkled throughout Futari Wa, but I think that if they leaned into that even harder, I think I would enjoy that.
Absolutely. I would not mind if they committed all the way to being slice of life, kind of like how I feel Tropical Rouge has.
Okay.
I feel like season 1 kind of struggled from, like, do we have an overarching plot, or are we just problem of the day?
Absolutely.
And so if you can pick one or the other, I think that you have a stronger show overall. And I think that we could have more fun with these characters if we weren't like, but what is happening?
Yeah, I could see that. Now, Max Heart does famously introduce a third member of the team. What are your expectations for her character, and how will that impact their relationships?
So, I'm thinking about Mahosukai PreCure here, and how the third member of their team, spoilers, was their daughter. So I would like that kind of dynamic for whoever shows up and becomes a part of their team. Maybe Nagisa and Honeka are entrusted with the gem of light, and it hatches into this girl.
Okay, maybe. So I don't know how realistic this is, but I'm wondering if maybe the third team member could add a little bit of levity to the team. Like, imagine if she is kind of younger, or either metaphorically younger or literally like a year younger or something. Maybe she could be like, oh, we're superheroes. This is kind of cool. Because Nagisa and Honeka are all about the duty, and they're kind of serious. So it would be kind of fun to meet a character who maybe they have like a little bit of the power of creation, so they can like draw a whale and then a whale appears, and they can be like, this is fun. And Nagisa's like, Arya and I, this can't be happening.
Okay, I like that. Are you looking forward to the return of Meppel, Mipple, and Polin? Or do you wish they'd introduce new fairies?
New fairies might be nice. Meppel and Mipple, while they did, grow on me a bit, and they stopped being so lovey-dovey, and Polin grew on me a bit, I still think that they're quite a pale imitation of later characters. They're a good groundwork to build upon, but kind of plain.
Yeah. And we are going to wait a little while before we start Max Heart. I suggested starting it when Delicious Party starts, and Joel was like, no, maybe we'll wait a bit longer than that. So we'll see, right? I don't really have any strong feelings either way. This originally was just going to be the one episode review podcast, and we've been slowly sneaking in other shows in there. So it doesn't bother me any.
I will say, you wear the hat of executive producer on the show, even though there's just two of us and, we're equal partners for the most part. But I would prefer not to start another season until we finish up Tropical Rouge. When we go into Cure of the What Now Season 2, it'd be kind of cool if we could start with one or two other shows instead of being like on episode 5 or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what you said. I'm communicating to our listeners that that's also what I think is going. Even if we binged all fresh before next episode, we wouldn't start something else with the last episode of season 1 of Cure of the What Now.
Absolutely. So I do have one more question, and then if you have any final thoughts on Futari Wa, we can wrap those up. But would you recommend this as a starting point if somebody wanted to get into PreCure?
I would not, no. I think that in terms of a duo character who have a relationship with each other and they grow and they learn from the experience, I think Witchy does everything Futari Wa does. And I can't really say that there's any place where Futari Wa did something better than Witchy did.
Plus Witchy has the bright colors.
Witchy has brighter colors. I imprinted on Mirai. Like, I saw her and she's just one of my favorite pinks, but I don't know if I can explicitly say like which of her character traits it is. I just like her design and I like her attitude and all that stuff. I can admit that Witchy's story is not well written, but it is one of my favorites for all of the other elements that go into it. They even have an homage to the Rainbow Storm hand-holding thing, because when those two and Witchy do their final attack, they also squeeze each other's hands. And there's an explicit, we might not see each other again, and that's really sad because we're girlfriends, which I think is more explicit than Futari.
I learned a great, cool fact about Witchy PreCure. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so in like the first episode, they say something about on the 16th night of the full moon. Mirai's name means full moon or something like that.
Okay.
In the last episode, when she wants to reunite with everyone, it is a full moon, and she says, I want to be together with everyone again 16 times.
Ha! That is incredible. I love it. It might be her last name that means full moon, because I know her first name just means future.
Yeah. I knew there was some sort of word stuff in there, but I'm not...
You don't know enough Japanese to really be able to speak to it.
Anyway... The fact is the 16 and the full moon and the 16 times. I thought that was cool.
That is really cool.
I really love it when there's attention to detail like that.
Of course. And for anyone else who hasn't heard this little bit of trivia, I learned something cool about Heartcatch. The writer of Madoka Magica said, I wish that I had seen Heartcatch before I wrote this, because then it would have been a little bit happier. And I think that's amazing.
I do. I like the Madoka that we got, but I'm curious what the happier version would have been like.
I wish we had a what if machine, because there's so many things I wonder about. But
Absolutely. For my part, I don't know if I would or would not recommend this as a starting point, because I do feel like there's a part of me that gets excited when I see references to past seasons in current seasons. And I think you miss out if you don't watch the previous seasons. But also, they don't happen often enough that you need to. And so if someone just wanted to know, is PreCure for me, I think the way the series has gone recently, there are more representative seasons. I don't feel like season 1 is the same as Tropical Rouge.
Right, absolutely.
So I would probably recommend Star Twinkle, Kira Kira, or Go Princess if you wanted an idea of what the series is like.
Yeah, I think starting with Fresh might also be a good idea, because that's when they introduced a lot of the holdovers that will become, staples of the series later on. But I think I see what you're saying, that maybe Fresh might not represent the newest stuff as much as Star Twinkle or Kira Kira.
Absolutely. There's just some sort of energy that the modern seasons have that slightly older seasons even are missing, despite liking those seasons.
Sure.
It's very different.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when you were talking about the references to previous seasons in later seasons, when Smallville was on TV, I was the right age that I watched it, and I was like, oh, this is such a great show. And I remember someone mentioned something about well, don't you remember the episode where Lex's dad crashed a helicopter or something? And I was like, no, did I miss an episode? And I feel like if you say something like that, people will go, did I miss something? But I think if you point out the references to Futari Wa in later seasons, people won't be like, did I miss something? They'd probably just go, oh, that's kind of neat. It's not as important.
That's true, yeah. Like I said, though, I do go feral for the original theme music playing, and I think they only do it in the anniversary seasons, but they do pull that gem out.
They do, absolutely.
And do you have any other thoughts on Futari Wa, or have we officially wrapped this season up in a bow?
I think we've wrapped it up. Highly recommend that people check it out. It's one of the only ones that are legally available, which is super cool.
And by watching that, you might encourage them to get the other seasons.
That's absolutely true. But I would say that if you watch it and it's not a 10 out of 10, I would say that there are other seasons that might better reach that hype.
Absolutely. And now we can go into
Tropical Rouge, episode 44.
Yes.
We're in the end game now. I believe, I don't know if people count this as spoilers, but I believe that there's only 46 episodes, so we only have 2 left, and that last one's probably going to be like a time skip or something like that, so we're getting there.
You said we're in the end game now, and that made me think of Spider-Man swooping out of existence, which made me think, I don't feel so good, PreCure.
All right. So, we finally get that all-important backstory. It turns out that the Witch of Destruction was going to destroy all of humanity. Humans mounted an attack and were able to wound her badly enough that she kind of got beached, I guess, except in a cave. She meets a woman, Annette, who becomes her friend, and the Witch of Destruction is like, oh man, I wish I could continue being her friend, but I must destroy. So she leaves without saying a word, starts her rampage again, and this PreCure shows up and starts fighting her. We find out that the legendary PreCure's name is Cure Oasis, which is a great name, and they fight for a bit, but then they realize who the other one is. The Witch of Destruction realizes that Annette is Cure Oasis, and Cure Oasis realizes that that mermaid friend that she made the other day is the Witch of Destruction. And so the Witch of Destruction is like, all right, our battle ended in a draw. I'm going home. She curled up in bed, and she never got out of it again. She decided that she was going to delay because she didn't want to face her enemy, who was also her friend. And then eventually her friend passed away. Humans only live so long. And the witch lived for so long that she actually forgot why she was delaying. We thought in the last episode, we speculated that maybe the butler had manipulated her, or it was that anyone who goes to the human world must have their memories erased. But no, it's just like a longevity thing. Which also implies that Annette was from like hundreds of years ago. I kind of got the impression that maybe she was from like 50 years ago. But, you know, small little lore details there.
The lore.
When they go back to fight the Witch of Delays again, Manatsu has a realization about the witch. And she gets this cool Super Saiyan moment where, like, the Witch of Delays is shooting tidal waves at her, and she's just, like, shrugging them off, or she's, like, dodging them by, like, a hair's breadth. And she goes, you don't really want to delay. You want to be friends with Annette. There's still time. And Annette's ghost shows up, and she's like, hey, let's hang out. Maybe give each other a little kiss. And they go hand in hand up into the great beyond. Like, they literally ascend towards the surface of the ocean. And the Witch of Delays turns into sea foam, which is a direct reference to Little Mermaid. Cool. Butler, who only had one goal, to love the Witch of Delays and bring her back to her full power, is sad that she left him. You know, he spent all of that money on this VTuber supporting her and getting shoutouts and stuff, but then when she went offline, they didn't hook up IRL. So he got upset and he decided to turn himself into a Yarine Da.
Into a dragon!
Into a larger seahorse, which could be argued to be a dragon. I really thought he was going to turn into that weird black creature that we saw that fought the queen when she was younger, but if that's going to happen, it's going to happen later next episode. Also, Manatsu was able to stop the Fool's Casket from filling up the cannon that's going to destroy all life, and so now the evil Butler, if he can defeat the PreCure and take their motivation power, that's going to give him the last drop he needs to get it to full and blow everything up. The stakes have never been higher.
Who's he going to give immortality to now? Just himself?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he's just going to drain the life of everyone on Earth and then fire it into space and be like, I don't need it. And then meanwhile, it hits one of the aliens from Star Twinkle and they're like, am I immortal now? What's happening?
I love that. Oh gosh. Did you like this episode?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. Some seasons have the character get a Super Saiyan power-up, and it works really well. I would say that this one felt like it came kind of out of the blue, but I do really appreciate it, and, you know, our girl Manatsu is showing us why she is the leader of the group, and we know her well. How did you like this episode?
It's hard to say. I think overall I enjoyed this episode. I really loved the witch reuniting with the ghost of her friend and saying, you know, I want to be friends, and the two of them drifting off into the afterlife together. I thought that was beautiful. It was very nice. I object to introducing a memory machine and then not using it as an explanation for why a person can't remember.
Yeah.
Chekhov walked into a room and he was like, I'm setting this down here. I'm setting this down. Nobody better use it. And he left and he came back like 200 years later and he went, you didn't touch it. And they were like, no, man, you asked us not to.
Absolutely.
So I feel a little let down by that. Dr. Numeri and Elde were a little weird. Like, I thought they'd be a lot more distraught over Changi-Ray, and they just sort of waited it out.
Yeah, Elde did have a moment where she saved the PreCure, and the butler's like, why did you do that? And she's just like, oh, you know, if the fight had continued, there'd be a mess to clean up, and that's such a pain in the butt. And it's clear that she's trying to, like, they're the PreCure, the only ones who can get Changi to turn back to normal. But then there's a later scene where Numeri and Elde are with him, and they're just like, yeah, I guess he's stuck in this form for a little bit, and they don't seem freaked out or worried or anything.
Yeah, I think it was more Elde didn't want the world to be destroyed. I did appreciate that scene from her. So overall, I would say I had a generally positive impression. There were just little nitpicky things here or there. I also feel like they are rushing the climax a little bit because we do only have 2 episodes left. So I think that as formulaic as it is, I think that this season would have benefited from the full 49 episodes that we typically get.
Yeah. Or maybe if they had spent a little bit more time on the story earlier on than kind of the episodic mode that we had. And it doesn't need to be a lore-heavy series where every episode gives you a piece of information of solving the murder or whatever, that kind of thing. But it could have used just a little bit more to help the pacing. I love Manatsu. I love Songo. I love Laura. I love Asuka. I love Kururun. But
Minori is there.
Minori is my least favorite. I can just, say that openly. But as much as I love the characters, and as much as that the clip show episode was one of the most brilliant episodes of PreCure I have ever seen, I don't think that this season is going to beat out my favorites. It's not going to top Princess or Witchy or Star Twinkle in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's going to be up there for me in terms of seasons that I would rewatch and still enjoy.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
But it's definitely not top of the list.
Absolutely. I would like to propose that after we finish Fresh and after we finish Tropical Rouge, before we start season 2, maybe we could do an official ranking of all of the seasons that we've seen. It will be incomplete, but it might be kind of good for the viewers to kind of be like, oh, so that's like officially what Kat thinks is the number 1 best season and the number 2 or whatever.
Absolutely. I do want to say I appreciate how earlier in the season, Laura said something along the lines of, a mermaid giving herself up for a human, that's stupid. And we all thought it was foreshadowing, and it was, but not for Laura. The Witch of Destruction's purpose was to destroy, but then she met this human and she couldn't anymore. And so she gave up her purpose in life. And Absolutely. Then she died when she realized she could reunite with this person by becoming foam. So I like that. I thought that was clever.
Can we take a moment to step back from Tropical Rouge and talk about writing in general for just a moment?
Let's do it.
So some characters in certain media are just forces of evil that exist, and that's it. I would say Jaku King, more or less, doesn't really have motivation. He just he's bred to destroy. The biogens or whatever they're called from Healin Good, they were diseases who they had sentience, but they basically just wanted to corrupt everything.
Let me live inside your body.
Creepy. But some villains show up and they're evil and people want to know why. And I would say that both of them have their merits in some places. Sometimes a character that is born of pure evil can be criticized because, how many things in the real world are actually pure evil? But if you have an evil character who's, I don't know, killing people left and right, and then someone's like, oh, by the way, the backstory is that they had a dog that got sick when they were a kid, you're like, hang on a second. So they're doing all these horrible things, and the backstory is it's a dog. It's not even related to...
I never lost that toy train.
Exactly. So what I found strange in this episode was that the Witch of Destruction, as she was known back then, clearly wanted to be friends with Annette, but then clearly was like, I have to destroy, it's what I was made for. And I think Laura asked the Queen, why is she the Witch of Destruction? And she goes, nobody knows, she was just born that way. I wonder if we're going to get some kind of explanation that there's an even bigger bad that will operate through Butler that created the Witch of Destruction or something, because in this case, she seems too human to simply be a force of evil. Either she's a force of evil that cannot be stopped and she would not think to befriend this cute girl, or she's a humanish character who would more quickly abandon the goal of destruction, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little odd.
So we'll just have to see what the next 2 episodes contain. Maybe they'll be the best finale ever, or maybe they'll be kind of average.
Also, the Queen knew this whole time that the Witch of Destruction Delays was vulnerable to friendship. She never tried to, send an emissary or...
Huh. Yeah. Yeah.
You know how the joke in the My Little Pony fandom was that Princess Celestia doesn't do anything?
Yes.
And she could do something, but she doesn't because she just doesn't feel like it and she likes to troll people.
Yeah.
That's the Mermaid Queen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the problem with doing a show that is generally aimed for kids and having like a mentor figure who's wise and super powerful, but they're not the main character, you know? So
That is something I thought Witchy handled pretty well.
yeah, I think so too.
Like, there was a reason that the mentor character, Fancy Gandalf or whatever we called him.
Vichy Gandalf,
That's
the really
right.
beautiful one.
But there's a reason that he was not able to use his limitless wizard power, because it wasn't limitless and he was using it to do something else.
Yeah, and Go Princess is another good example of Kanata not being useless. Even if you only watch the first episode and are deathly allergic to spoilers, you can still see that he has a connection to Harno. My bad. Anyways, is that about everything for Tropical Rouge, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I don't really have much to say else on that. We'll do future speculation here in a bit, so let's move on to Fresh.
Absolutely. Now, while we were watching Futari Wa and Tropical Rouge and all that stuff in preparation for this episode you're listening to right now, I realized that we had exactly 9 episodes left, and we had exactly 3 episodes of Tropical Rouge. So for the next 3 episodes of the Cure of the What Now podcast, we'll be covering 3 episodes of Fresh at a time. This week we watched 42, 43, and 44. 2 of these episodes are actually basically a 2-parter. So Setsuna realizes that if they destroy the sorrow gauge, Chiffon won't be able to turn into infinity anymore. However, if you break open the sorrow gauge, all of that concentrated sorrow will get on you and you'll be trapped in sorrow forever, and that's terrible. So she decides, Setsuna does, that she's going to go sacrifice herself. She got summoned by Labyrinth to basically be like, come back to the mansion, become an evil person again. She goes, this is the perfect opportunity. She pretends that she wants to join the company again. Labyrinth, I mean, not the company. And then she decides she's going to try to destroy the sorrow gauge, but then Northa captures her and goes, aha, you're the bait with which I will lure the other 3 to you. Also, I'm going to make you really upset because you did all these evil things and you can never be forgiven. But then it turns out that the other Fresh girls can still kind of communicate with Setsuna. It's not like word-for-word communication, but their feelings go into their phones and they're able to get those feelings across. And because Buki and Miki and Love all, love and cherish Setsuna and believe in her, Setsuna's like, oh no, I am Cure Passion, and they take the reins back, and they save the day. And in the next episode, they decide to actually defeat or destroy the sorrow gauge. Northa uses some, scarecrow gas on them that traps them in, these weird illusions. We can talk about that more in a second, but eventually when they break out, she turns the sorrow gauge into a sorrow atase. And they eventually beat it, but it's outside now, and that concentrated despair is going to engulf the world, and everyone will fall into despair. But then Chiffon's like, wait, hit me with your energy, and I'll use the Chiffon Spirit Bomb that will effectively clear away the despair, and the day is saved. Hooray!
Hooray! Chiffon sucked it up like spaghetti.
I guess so. I got the impression that, zapped it,
Yeah. But either way, we thought there was a climax coming, and then they were like, what if anti that?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Absolutely.
So the thing we thought was going to be the big problem for the next couple episodes turned out to not be such a problem, and it was all part of Northa's evil plan?
I disliked... Okay, so this is actually episode 44, but Chiffon uses this big... I'm just going to keep calling it the Spirit Bomb attack. He uses this finale attack to clear away the despair, and this little drop of something comes off of Chiffon, and Northa takes it. She's like, if I corrupt this, I'll be able to control infinity. This was all part of my plan. I am willing to believe that everything that happened in episodes 42 and 43 was all according to Northa's plan. She knew Setsuna would try to sacrifice herself. She captured Setsuna and knew that the other girls were going to show up. She knew that they would break out of the despair gas that she poured on them. She knew they would defeat the Sorrow Atase. I wish that she had not known about that gem, if she had grabbed it out of desperation, and maybe she had spent 1 or 2 more episodes being like, is there a way I can use this? Because no one's that smart. The Joker from The Dark Knight, I love him, but there's no one who's that able to see that far ahead.
Absolutely. Do I look like a man with a plan? Well, obviously you had to plan some of this.
Absolutely.
No, I definitely think that was a little odd. And also, how would she know to expect that to come off of Chiffon when Chiffon is a creature from space that nobody knew to expect? And also, it's very confusing.
There might be more story to this because we have another 6 episodes, but unless they clarify that maybe North has fought this battle before or something, like maybe there's alternate dimensions and she's fought a different version of the team, it seems weird that she would have anticipated that.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to separate discussion of episode 44 into kind of 2 chunks because I want to keep talking about the bad guys, but everything else about the episodes is kind of something else. So I really liked her planning with Westar and Solar, and the scene where one of them summons their Nakewameke, and then it flashes to her and she goes, Westar, you will do this. And then Solar does something and it flashes back to her and she goes, and Solar, you will do that. Like, that was cool.
That was excellent. Absolutely.
Other than that, do you have a succinct summary of 44 for me?
Episode 44, the Fresh team, I think they're called the Clover team, are going to enter a dance contest. The last time they entered a dance contest, it got interrupted by East being a total bad B-word. But this time, Setsuna's not going to destroy the dance competition to bring sorrow. So they're going to enter and they're working really hard. And Miyuki, knowing that her little brother Daisuke has a crush on Love, is like, why don't you enter the dance contest? I think she'd be really impressed with you. And Love goes, and Daisuke goes, all right, I'll consider it. So he gets his 2 friends to join on the promise of possibly being able to impress Buki and Miki. And they enter the competition. And Daisuke's really pumped up about this. And they dance, and the Clover team dances. It is not interrupted well, it is interrupted, but their dance is not interrupted.
The round is not interrupted.
Exactly. By Westar and Solar pulling shenanigans. So basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the girls separated from Chiffon, turn Chiffon into infinity with that kind of corrupted glimmer thing that Northa found, and then take Chiffon into Labyrinth, into the alternate dimension that they're from. And the episode ends with them having now taken Chiffon, and the music box no longer returns Chiffon to her senses. So I smell a power-up coming, the super Clover box in the next episode when they all combine their feelings.
Absolutely. Also a visit to the evil realm.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll plunge into the belly of the beast. They will save Chiffon and they will leave. I'm just curious as to, what's going to happen after they blow up Labyrinth. Maybe they set all of the sorrow gauges to explode and they get out of there and they're like, we defeated the bad guys. But then from the rubble, you see, Northa's hand come up and she's like, you thought you defeated me? And maybe half of her face is, burned off and she has to get, cyborg implants.
That's kind of awesome. I was just going to say maybe Love gives Mobius a certain talking to and he decides he doesn't want to be evil anymore, but...
No, I just meant they're probably not going to spend 6 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So, do they rescue Chiffon in 45, and then they have 3 more episodes of dance contest nonsense, and then in 50, Mobius shows up?
Absolutely. Some highlights that I forgot to talk about from 42 and 43. Setsuna shows up, and Westar goes, East, you're here! We can be buddies again! Which was very cute.
He says, we can be a team, the 3 of us again, and then you hear Northa go, 3, and she walks in the room and Westar's like, I meant 4, please don't kill me.
Also, the mansion gets blown up because of the sorrow gauge Soriwatase, and later Westar and Solar and Northa are all talking in Northa's study where all her plants are, and eventually she goes, by the way, why are the 2 of you in my room? And Westar looks around and he goes, we don't have a house, ma'am.
The mansion blew up. Some creepers got it. It's going to take us so much time to mine all of the cobblestone to build it back up again.
He's just so precious. Westar, my boy. Solar, you're fun.
Solar is fabulous, but he does not get as much characterization. He's not as goofy as the others. I noticed in watching these episodes, this isn't specific to any of these episodes that we're watching, but I've noticed that they do a lot of sports motifs in this season, and I like it. But, they do the kind of getting into position like they're a football team at the beginning of Clover Grand Finale. When they're throwing the hearts to each other, it's, very reminiscent of, again, passing like the ball or whatever. And this is the second time we've had them kind of do the team huddle where they put all 4 of their hands in together. And I like that. I don't know. I don't know if it's an intentional motif or I'm just reading into it, but no, I like it.
Absolutely. I like it a lot too. It feels like this is very much a team / like go for victory season, and both of those things lend themselves very well to the sports.
100%.
How do you feel about Daisuke and Love's relationship?
I find it weird that Daisuke continuously talks to Peach about the problems he's having with Love. If he told anyone else but Cure Peach, if he confided in anyone else, Love would not be able to, his words wouldn't reach, But I do really like the idea that, as he shows off his dance moves, and by the way, he's a little bit more talented at dance than the other two, Kento and what's-his-face. And Miyuki's like, of course, he's my little brother. But I do like the idea that Love is impressed by his dance moves. But also, this episode ends with Daisuke being like, hey, I know you look pretty depressed. He doesn't know Chiffon's been taken, but he sees Cure Peach kind of like moping. And he's like, I know you feel pretty bad, but there's this girl I like, and I couldn't even dance good enough to get into the finals, so that really sucks for me. And she goes, I don't have time for this. And she kind of walks off sadly. And I was kind of hoping Daisuke would actually have encouraging words, but he made it about himself. And that's not what you do.
Tart's bad timing, buddy, was so perfect.
Yes, it was so good.
I think it was specifically Daisuke, bro, you got bad timing.
Yeah. 100%.
But I really like Daisuke as a character because he strikes me as a person who wants to communicate his feelings but doesn't know how. So he's doing the best with what he has. And we see him trying more, especially over the last couple episodes that have starred him. So that's kind of cool. I appreciate it when they have a love interest and give them a character.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And he has actual motivations, and that's neat. I like it.
Did you want to talk about the girls in the scarecrow gas?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much. So first what happens is the girls get sent to their own alternate dimensions, their delusions of despair. So Miki's talking to her brother who's given up on life. Love runs into Karu, I believe, who has given up on donuts. Buki runs into a bunch of animals that are like, we hate humans. And Setsuna is in Love's house, and Love's parents, Ayumi and What's-His-Face, are both gone. But then they all realize that something's wrong, that this isn't real, and then they get teleported to a second delusion in which they are fighting elemental monsters. So Miki's fighting like this water monster, and I think Buki's fighting like a rock monster. But they're not fighting water monsters and rock monsters. What they're actually fighting are each other. So Miki thinks she's fighting a water monster, but that water monster is actually Love. And Love thinks she's fighting a rock monster, but it's actually Miki. And as they're about to finish each other off, Chiffon uses psychic powers to reset them, and they stop like 2 inches from each other's face, about to deliver the final punch. That was kind of cool. I liked that a lot.
It was awesome. I like how they're all so in tune with each other's fighting that they can't land hits on each other.
Okay, yeah. I was really hoping Chiffon snapping them out of their memory is pretty cool, but I think it would be really neat if, say, because they established in an earlier episode that Peach is really good at punching and Miki's really good at kicking. I know they got transformed into, like, non-human shapes, but it would be interesting if Love could kind of be like, this guy's kicking me a lot. That's kind of strange.
That blow, it's just like Miki's. Yeah, I think that would have been cooler than having Chiffon resolve it.
Everyone read the Drist books. For no reason. That trope doesn't show up in there at all. Anyways.
Those are really good books.
They are really good books. I thought it was interesting that Northa and Westar and Solar could use machines to monitor what the girls were seeing. We've already kind of alluded to the fact that we think that maybe the people of Labyrinth are just like robots or computer chips or whatever. But it just, the level of technology that Labyrinth has is really interesting.
Absolutely. I wonder if this is like almost a technology versus the enduring human spirit story.
Maybe. But then Northa throws that off by being all about the plants. You'd think that maybe she would use technology or something. Like if she was an evil scientist, that would fit the theme so well.
But instead she's an evil botanist. That's just Harley Quinn, or...
other Harley Quinn.
That's just Poison Ivy. I'm upset because Poison Ivy is my favorite, and I said the wrong name.
I'm sorry. Do you want to cut this and just say Poison Ivy, or do you want to keep this in?
We can keep this in. It's fine. People listen to this podcast to hear me making a doof of myself. So I give the people what they want. If you're people and you're listening to this, tell me what you want.
Absolutely. Is there anything else from these fresh episodes that really kind of stuck in your mind?
No, I don't think so. I think I am ready to move on to Tweets in a Bottle if you are.
Absolutely. I do have one really quick thought, and that is I don't know what Labyrinth gets by creating despair.
Anymore.
Yeah.
So before they got to fill the sorrow gauge, and filling the sorrow gauge created infinity.
Yes.
They were like, when the sorrow gauge is full, we'll get infinity. But now creating sorrow shouldn't do anything for them, except Northa can use it to water her plants, which creates the Sororiwatases, which create despair.
Well, so I guess what I meant is the part where the sorrow gauge exploded and was going to drown the world. They were acting as if that was end of series, like the world would never recover. And it's possibly true, but like, what does Mobius want where the destruction of the planet isn't really his end goal? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that if they drown the world in sorrow from the sorrow gauge exploding, the PreCure will be powerless to stop them from taking infinity.
Okay. See, I figured they wanted infinity to take over the planet, and if everyone was already sorrowful, they could just do it. But maybe they have a second goal.
As far as I remember, he wants infinity because he can use infinity to make everywhere Labyrinth.
Okay.
And he wants everyone to be his robots.
Okay, that makes sense. Now we can move on to Tweets in a Bottle. James, that one Wilder guy, has reached out to us and has quite a few tropical thoughts. The Witch of Delays technically won her fight with Annette by just outliving her. You know, mermaids can live forever, humans only live for so long, so, you know.
That's not sad at all.
There's also a scene that I forgot to mention when it looks like the negative can's gonna go off and everything's gonna be destroyed. Kurun just sitting there eating some seashell cookies with some crumbs on their mouth or whatever and just being like, Kurun, as the world's about to end, so I really love that. And then Cure Oasis transformation, good. We get a full-on transformation from her, and we get a full-on, she has an attack that we actually get to see, much like the Flamingo Shoot or the Summer Strike that our girls have. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I really liked her transformation too. I feel like she would have one of my favorite Cure designs if her hair wasn't so dumb.
Unfortunately, there are a couple of PreCure characters that the hair kind of ruins it. I do like that they try to go for fantastical, but it's a little much, you know?
Yeah, just a tad. I also, like, James didn't include this in his official list of Tropica thoughts, but when he was watching the episode, he sent, Toei says, you want a green cure? Here's your fucking green cure. And, you know, Toei did say that. I understand why people who have green as their favorite color would be fixated on why aren't there more green cures. However, you know, I think it's fine saving it as a special color because that makes it more fun when they do show up. So like I was excited when we saw Cure Oasis and we're like, she's green. Whereas if she had been like yellow, we'd be like, yellow.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's kind of like how there aren't very many red cures either, I would say.
Okay. Probably more red cures than there are green cures, though. I can think of a couple of red cures that are definitively red, whereas many people still debate as to whether or not Lala counts as a green cure or not, so.
Absolutely. And then James's final thought that I would like to highlight, because we all were thinking it, was Butler is a simp.
Yeah, he's got squirrels in his pants.
I literally said that during the episode.
the I can't believe you would go without me line is really what makes it feel like some kind of...
Well, and to me, what characterizes a simp as opposed to someone who just really likes someone else is they don't actually like the person, they like the idea of the person. And so they're doing things for that person, but ultimately it's to serve their own interests in them. And if the person does something that they don't like, that the simp doesn't like, then all of a sudden it's, why are you doing this to me? Rather than, why are you, the person I love, living your best life? And so I feel like Butler is a simp because he wanted to push the Witch of Delays into destruction, even though that wasn't necessarily in her best interest, even though she discovered friendship and didn't know how to pursue it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Would you say that since the Witch of Destruction is, of course, a witch, and because the thing that saved her was her relationship with Annette, would you say that we learned that friendship is magic in this episode of Tropical Rouge?
I would
also,
say that.
I believe that we missed one of James's thoughts where he said that I heard that Yarnay dawing yourself can make you go blind. I don't know what James is alluding to on this PG family-friendly podcast, but absolutely, it is interesting that the Butler retained his mind when he Yarnay dawed, whereas Chongi Ray did not. And you and I had a theory that it was because he chose to Yarnay daw. And then, of course, there's also the Kingdom Hearts explanation that he had a strong will, and so his nobody retained that personality.
Absolutely. That's kind of a good segue into thoughts for the future. What are you expecting out of next week's episode?
I don't know. Okay, so realistically, I think what's going to happen is they're going to use their land beat dynamic and marine beat dynamic to try to hit him with a blast, and it will not work, and he'll blast them with negative energy, and they'll be like, oh no, and then they'll wonder what they can do, and then the motivation energy of all the people, they'll do like a spirit bomb thing, and that'll unlock like an extra special, super powerful attack. Also, maybe Manatsu, since she used empathy to connect with the witch and be like, hey, you really just miss your friend. Maybe she'll connect with the Butler and be like, you didn't really love the witch. You loved this, and you can still do that. Unless the thing he loves is destruction, in which case, Laura kick his teeth out.
You can't do destruction, but I support you finding a new interest, my guy.
Yeah, channel into something else,
I'm absolutely expecting some sort of Kira Heartcatch, I have destroyed the world, haha, the PreCure, the last vestige of them is still alive, but eventually they're gonna die too. And then they use the Tropica energy of everyone in order to recreate the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the strengths of a show like this, focusing on the side characters, the student council and the observatory and all these other characters, I think that if they came back in the finale, that would be really cool. And it would kind of be like the kindness that they paid forward. Kindness isn't the exact right word, but it is being repaid by all the people that they saved. So that's a really cool thing to see in kind of superhero adjacent series.
Totally.
And that has been your
Doot final thought outro goes here.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and don't forget to Tropica Shine.
Wait a second. We didn't say what next week's episode is titled.
Episode 45 is titled Battle of Motivation, Shine, Tropical Paradise. Now, I'm just going to say, Tropical Paradise, excellent name for their final attack.
Sounds like it could be a final attack. Yeah, it sounds like a PreCure giant lady.
Do you think Oasis will join in? Like her Force Ghost will be behind them?
Maybe, and the witch too. She'll be holding hands with Oasis, and they'll do the Futari Wa clench.
Oh, okay, the Futari Wa clench is pretty good. I was about to say maybe they do a mother-daughter Kamehameha with Manatsu.
Oh,
She's
I
in
love
the background
that.
also doing the same.
One other thing I forgot to mention from the fresh episodes is when they were naming all the dance teams, there was one team that was a reference to Futari Wa PreCure. They were a duo called Aurora Wave. Haha, it's like the dual Aurora Wave. Okay, bye, everyone. What a shining episode of Cure of the What Now. Thanks for being our Nakama.
Thank you as always for your support. If you could, very kindly, be sure to like or share this with any of your friends. Let them know that we're always open to suggestions or thoughts about any particular episode.
And please take a moment to rate and review us on wherever you get our podcast from. Except for YouTube. You can't rate and review us on YouTube, but you can like and subscribe.
Absolutely. If you like what we're doing, even just a comment that says keep up the great work is always helpful for brightening our day.
Absolutely. Joel, where can our fine listeners find you if they want more of you?
Absolutely. The best way to get in touch with us is to go onto Twitter and find us at KOTWN_pod. That's where we're most active. But of course, we also have a Gmail. That's kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com.
You can also find me at Pirate Ghost Host.
She is much more prolific than I am, but not all of her content is necessarily about the podcast, whereas the other one tries to focus more on the show.
You like our sticker sheets? Joel's got sticker sheets for you. And that has been your Tropica outro.
Do-do-do-do. You'll be dancing with me today.